All right. What is going on, YouTube? We're going to do this real quick because obviously you can't let this go without talking about it. It's just amazing. But I'll give people a chance to check in here. I was going to do just a video and upload it, but I decided I had time for a chat. So I won't begrudge you guys the chance to comment live if I get the opportunity. Um, but we've had some good weather here. We had snow Monday through Wednesday through yesterday. Yeah, it was pretty good. It's all mostly melted off in the valleys, but it's good to get a couple of days of steady weather to get that ground saturation, water saturated into the ground. So that's all good. We haven't been up here in a while. I was trying to think the last time. Yeah, it's been a while since we got a live feed from up here above the valley, above the lake. But I hope everybody's doing good. I hope everybody is watching intently the chaos and madness that they're throwing down out in Europe and the meltdown and the total. Apparently, people are shocked. People are just aghast that Putin would do this. I don't know if it's virtue signaling or they're just totally so unaware of what's been going on the last 10 years that they're like, oh, their feelings are hurt that Putin would do this. Um, Truly amazing how uh, just people will take the opportunity to virtue signal or just not offer up any sort of a solution or problem, analyze the problem. Hey, what's up, JJ? How you doing up there in the Great White North? Hope you're doing well. I believe you guys have got some good snowstorms this year from what I've seen so far, so that's good. I am doing pretty well. I am still shot free and, as far as I know, sickness free. That seems to be the big thing everybody comments on is like, I have made it this through the apocalypse and not gotten any sickness or the shot. So that's all good. You know, and I was sick back in December, but I didn't get tested. So I don't know what I had because I didn't need to get tested. That's about how it goes. But so, yeah, let's talk about the Ukraine thing, right? That's obviously the situation du jour. I did a video dang 6 years ago about how Putin was and Russia was not going to allow the EU to undermine Ukraine, their closest neighbor, and just waltz in there and undermine and basically be a puppet state for the EU. That's what they were trying to do years ago. That's what they've been trying to do for a long time. They had those issues in 2016 that really highlighted some stuff. They had those riots that started kicking in, and the EU basically soft cooed the place. And Putin's probably been planning ever since then, this exact moment. You know, it's not, nobody should be surprised that Putin did this. Don't get me wrong. Putin's not a good guy. He's an, but you gotta give Putin respect because he's protecting his people and his nation. He's not a diversity, democracy, equity, and equality for all type, which is all the EU and us over here are pushing. That's what he's fighting back against. And the equity crowd is the one he's fighting. It's like I mentioned on the last chat. It's the NWO powers, evil at the top, fighting against each other for control. It's kind of transparent to us who gets control at this point. You know, um, there was a good there was a good headline actually. It was in the Washington Examiner. I shared it on Twitter, and their headline was um, China and Russia battle for the lead of the NWO, and it is that they're just fighting for who controls the new world order, and there's nothing good that can come out of that because the new world order supposedly kind of is controlled by the EU and the US, right? And not even the countries that. And again, we got to get away from that thinking. It's the banking conglomerates that are under the control. Because looking back to 2016, reminder, the whole problem that started in Ukraine was the European Central Bank tried to undermine it and buy it out. And that's when Russia said, no, 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 no. This isn't going to happen. um, and the EU's kept pushing. They keep trying to suck resources out of there for pennies on the dollar, and Putin's had enough of it, and he's protecting his people. Um, is it going to escalate? That's the bigger question, because everybody's saying World War III, right? Well, obviously, just attacking Ukraine is not World War III. It's who else gets involved and who is the cause, or who backs somebody else's play, right? China's kind of backed Russia's play a little bit, which I think is totally expected. Um, so things are playing out kind of like everybody thought they would play out back in 1980, or something like that. This is kind of a rewrite of the old Cold War, and a lot of it's just some of the boundaries are different. Um, but really, if Putin thinks we're going to react militarily, that's when things get frosty and really concerning for us here in the homeland, right? Um, if we strike with hard target, like into Russia targets, that's where we get EMPs here in the States. I think that's where we get targeted ports, targeted airports, stuff like that. Um, Tactical nukes are not off the board if we start targeting things inside Russia. Supposedly, Biden has already been offered cyber attacks options, and the rumor was that the Russian Ministry of Defense websites and stuff like that was down in Russia a few hours ago. So this is all ramping up very quickly and escalating, which means double check your stuff, right? Double check your preps, double check where you're at. We went up on Propane Monday because this was all coming. People that say they can't, foresee that Putin would do this, like haven't been paying attention and are asleep at the wheel, and definitely shouldn't be any type of foreign policy advisor or any type of national commentary people. All these supposed newspaper people that are totally aghast, like you should be fired. They should be fired outright. Maybe go cover the local backgammon tournament or something like that. They're totally inept at their jobs if they didn't see this coming and the reasons for. Um, but yeah, and more concerning is now you're getting that neocon party ramped back up, right? The neocon wing of the Republican Party is really inching their way into this, and lots of the comments you see out there, and from normal people, I'm not talking the politicians necessarily, but the normal everyday conservative person still sees Russia as the old communist Russia, right? And they see them as our enemy outright, no questions asked, and want to respond. I get that the normal average day person in Ukraine, you want to pray for them, but that government had it coming because they were on the verge of being, allied with the EU against Russia, and that just wasn't going to be allowed for resources and other reasons, security reasons. Tactical Tony, what's up? The United Nations is worthless, is what they are, right? What's up, Tony? High roller, dropping the super chat. Yeah, the United Nations, I guess, had a meeting of the Security Council and everything, and that went about as well as you expected. Again, China kind of siding on Russia's side, and so there's no decisions made and no sanctions or nothing. So the UN's as worthless as we thought, and we knew. As much as the NWO has tried to manipulate them in their favor, now you have this battle back and forth for the controls and the reins, right? Hey, Brastard, what's up? Checking into the chat. Constitutional Carpenter, afternoon. Welcome to the chat. Good to see you. Your name is not familiar. Red October, what's up? Red October's coming. Bring me the bear. Gonna carve him up, huh? Yeah, we'll see about that. Right, JJ, good point by JJ. The supposed conservatives back in the regime that was installed by, the puppets Hillary and Obama and all them back, before 2016. All that game with Ukraine that was played way back when, and the conservatives supposedly falling on their side. Again, you're presented with a worse of two options, the worst solution of two options that you have. There's no good option here. The Hegelian dialectic is alive and well here. You get Putin in Ukraine and you get the EU in Ukraine. Ukrainians are not going to win out either way. Their country is going to be, basically pillaged by one side or the other. And unfortunately, there's a lot of war that's going to happen, it looks like, in between, which was predictable. Brastard says Ukraine destroyed, sold about half of its small arms in the early 2000s after Senator. Yeah. Well, they decommissioned all their nuke stuff too, right? They gave up their nukes for guaranteed security from both Russia and the EU. They were basically a denuclearized state. Ukraine would have had a pretty big arm to swing with their nukes if they had kept them. But they denuclearized for peaceful purposes back in the 90s and 2000s, right? But yeah, they've given up a lot of their stuff. But supposedly they're arming their citizens a day late and a dollar short. There's lots of stories about Ukraine giving citizens weapons and military arms. It's like, yeah, does you no good to go out and buy your weapons the day of the invasion. Like, you haven't trained, you don't have the ammo, you don't have the capacity or ability to use them. So, oh well. You're just gonna have to up. You're not gonna be very effective. You might as well get on the train like everybody else and leave Ukraine. Hey, what's up, Delaware Patriot? Delaware's had a couple of good chats lately. I checked in on. And Walter Davis, good afternoon. What's going on? So yeah, what the next shoe to drop is the big question, And Putin, when they're in there with such overwhelming force, obviously he was planning to be resisted, right? He was planning to have opposition or support forces come in. He was planning for all contingencies, let's put it that way. So he wasn't going to go in there, with just half of what he needed and what he could get away with. He was definitely swinging a big stick in case, I don't know, any of the neighbors or EU wanted to kind of get involved or, see if they could. Apparently Ukraine doesn't have any security compacts with its neighbors, which is kind of weird. It borders Hungary and I think a couple other, Poland there. But again, it goes back to the EU situation, and they couldn't be allowed if the EU, thus Russia gets involved. Harry got his message redacted. That's somebody bringing out the band hammer out there. What's going on? There's a bunch of hammers in the chat. Last time we only had a mule with the wrench took somebody out. That's interesting. We haven't had a troll in the chat in forever, and then the last one, and then this one, having to bring out the wrench is kind of a rare event around here. We must be throwing up some flack, taking fire from somewhere. Yeah, this is a good opportunity to relook at everything if you haven't already, as this thing has escalated and built up. Again, depending on the nature of response, that's where we get really vulnerable. I think they said there were 260,000 troops on the border with Ukraine. 100 and something went in, so he's still got 100 in reserve to flex and do what else needs to be done. Whether that's Poland or whatever. The ultimate, if Ukraine's not the ultimate goal, there's more to happen. But I don't think that things would stall long if Putin had bigger plans. I put it up on Twitter weeks ago. Like, Putin will have all of his strategic objectives accomplished before Brussels and Washington, D.C. could even figure out what they want to do in response. Like, he's light years ahead of them, strategic thinking wise, and basically they haven't seen the ball since kickoff. If you've watched go watch some European TV. I watched some German news reporting this morning, and the rot that is multiculturalism and diversity has destroyed Europe outright. It's not that you can't have capable women leaders, but these people didn't get in there because they were capable leaders. The EU was definitely undermined, compromised, at the leadership level. Um, the culture has just totally been destroyed. It's, we see the problems here in the United States. It's multiplied probably by 10 in the EU. The German television didn't look like anything like German. There were no Germans on that TV. They had all come from somewhere else. So that gets to the point of, if these countries undertake invasion, people aren't fighting for their homelands anymore. It's very easy to take over a country when people are just there just to benefit economically, or whatever, to have a little freedom to benefit economically. It's not really their homeland. It's not have this. It doesn't have the same meaning, as far as fighting to the death. So there you go. I think that's a big weakness that the EU has, that other than the British, which we know can throw the fight down pretty hard, but have limited numbers. It's a lot looking a lot like World War II, just with the Russians rolling everybody instead of Germans. Who knows what his plans are, though? But if we throw punches back, that's when it's game on here in the States, and all options are on the table. I would think, other than a massive nuclear strike, I could see tactical strikes, and the EMP being the biggest concern. The EMP being outright just to disable as much as possible, to cripple everything in response, is what I think our real concern is. And you could get a small level EMP just as kind of a warning. You never know. We got some more comments here. Better not attack TikTok. TikTok's Chinese, Red. You don't want us to attack Chinese TikTok. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, Sky News is a good example of Delaware. There's a good one. I remember watching Sky News a lot back when the Scottish referendum was going down. That was an interesting study in how they reported the Scottish referendum for independence. When you most of the people most of the argument of the Scottish at the time was pro-socialist. They wanted to get away from Britain to be more socialist. That's just, it's like, have at it. Go ahead. Do your idealized social state. See how far you get. Tony's praying for tidal waves. Interesting. Tidal waves, huh? I don't know. I don't know if that won't hamper me none. I'll be set. Yeah, getting cash and fuel ASAP if people haven't already. That's another side topic. Talk about getting cash. Side topic, if anybody's not been paying attention to what happened in Canada, season assets, season bank accounts, shutting down funding streams and voluntary cash donation websites, the GoFundMe and whatnot. This is something we've talked about on these chats for years, right? It's headlines now. We talked about it years ago, not just yesterday. Like, get your stuff out of the banks. We all know direct deposit's a thing, electronic, payments and stuff. It's something you deal with, but don't save money in the bank. Don't save money in any of those markets. They're just waiting for the event to be seized or shut down or just not accessible. Oh yeah, the Tool song, waiting for oh yeah, learn to swim. Yep. Hey, what's up, Pops? You snowboarding today? Looks like you had a good little trip up north to do some snowboarding. Good times. Yeah, fuel and gas is expected to go up a little bit. Oil Brent crude hit over $100. Texas Light is still under, but that'll fluctuate probably up on the upside as we go. JJ's hoping for CME or EMP. It'll definitely adjust the learning curve and adjust the survival curve for sure. Any type of electromagnetic event is going to change the game. 110 now. Chimes in. Delaware oil is now over 110. Brent crude. Whoo! Spicy. That's what did we get up to? We got up to like 120 back in the early 2000s, '08 time frame or something like that. 120 or so before it brought down to reality. People were watching the silver and gold markets. They popped up a little bit last night and are back down to reality. But again, I want to chime in on that a little bit. You know, the paper silver market is what it is. It's just a casino game where they shuffle around things to get dollars, right? Um, the silver and gold paper markets there, which you see listed on the websites on the as the price, is going to go closer to zero when things get really crazy, as it does to go up, because people are going to have to dump those paper contracts because there's no real silver backing or gold, and the price is going to drop precipitously close to zero as everybody just sells that so they can take that money and go buy real stuff, whether that's land or gas or whatever else they can get that's real, because there's not enough silver to back up or gold to back up those contracts, and they're going to be left holding what's basically worthless paper in the end, and they don't want to do that. Nobody wants to be holding that. You won't be able to get a physical ounce out in, at the coin store or anything at that price. No doubt that price will be like through the roof. It'll be like 40, $50 in real life exchange. But the paper, what's listed on the stock market, is going to be, or the commodities market, is going to go through the floor when things are really, that's when you know things are really spicy in the financial markets. And that's what almost happened back in 2020. Remember at the beginning of COVID, what was it, $12? It sank to. Everybody was dumping that paper to try to get real stuff, try to get other things, right? Um, and then it kind of started regulating up to where we are now. And that's just something. And you couldn't get an ounce of physical silver for $12. It was not possible. The websites that, offered prices, above spot, they adjusted that relatively quickly. It was like $17, $5 above spot or whatever at that point, because it was so volatile. America Died. How you doing? Haven't seen you in a while. Good to talk to you. Welcome to the chat. I think somebody else hopped in here that I was going to mention. Irish, what's up, ninjas? My ninjas are all here. Right on. Good to see you, Irish. So yeah, we got all the crew. But it's all the things we talked about and or we're talking about preparing for are here. All the options are on the table. I think you would have to say, with China back in Russia's play, the Taiwanese issue is on the table. The future expansion of China is probably your biggest concern as they look eastward, with Russia to their west as a backstop. They just look to expand, and Australia is their first real expansion target. Everything else is just stepping stones to kind of get what they want. Australia is the big one. And with us just being like trying to marginalize our effectiveness in response in that scenario, in my opinion. We were having the discussion, me and the son, last night about the situation and Chinese invasion and the possibilities of, and I'm like, it's not reality. Even a Russian and China combined occupation is not reality. No military strategist would try to occupy the continental United States. Russia could try to take Alaska. Hawaii is obviously on the board. But physical occupation is not even remotely reality in my mind, in my military mind. They can cause a lot of chaos, sabotage, maybe take some key points for a limited amount of time, but that's just not something I don't think they're strategically thinking about. They would rather perform sabotage, keep us out of the game as they make advances nearer to their homelands. There's too much decentralized thinking and too much effort, manpower alone to occupy and keep this area that they can't afford when they're trying to. Remember, they're going to be fighting other people. India's in the game. All of Europe, obviously, at some point would, whatever's left, be in the game. But if they just want to marginalize us so they can take their key targets, whatever those strategic goals are, whether it's Australia, Poland, through the Bosphorus Straits for Russia, do they want to, you know, do they want to go all the way down to Greece and occupy the straits or something? I don't know. That just depends on what their really big picture they're looking at for future growth in their own areas, if that's something they consider worth the price, because it's going to be a steep price for everybody involved, right? It's not like they're getting over scot-free without casualties. Think about what we paid in blood and treasure for the last 20 years, invading Europe and invading Taiwan, the Philippines, name your country for China, is going to be similar. They're not like super soldiers. They have a very limited ability. Again, decentralized efforts is not their strong point. Suspect that Russia's probably gotten better at it. They've probably learned some lessons, and they've watched us, but they still have a big learning curve when it comes to fighting over large areas with decentralized thinking and decentralized efforts and mission type orders and all the stuff that America's been working on for 60 plus years. A couple of comments on the updates. Videos of different dead Russians taking the airport. Yeah, it seems to be conflicting info. I follow some guys on Twitter, and they were arguing about whether the airport was taken by paratroopers or by air assault, because it's an Army thing, and all the paratroopers were trying to get in there, air seizure comments for bragging rights and whatnot. But I think air assault was the consensus at this point. There's not a lot of evidence, and it's the same with there was initial reports of amphibious assault on the 2 port cities of Ukraine, and apparently those were feints and not accurate. So apparently the amphibious assault didn't go down as it was kind of initially reported. They were fakes to kind of take away Ukraine's military and distract them. Yeah, Delaware. I don't think those masks are for the Wuhan. I think those masks are because it's like 20 degrees. Is more likely. Probably a little chilly. And that's one thing I think, Putin has the advantage of taking this fight in the winter with an army that's prepared for the winter, while as the people that are responding are not quite as ready, right? So he's got another month and a half, 2 months to consolidate before really any effective response potentially actually physically into Ukraine, if with any large force, because just the preparation for winter is not there unless Norway or Sweden ain't getting involved, I don't think, or Finland or somebody like that wants to get involved with their trained soldiers. There's not enough cold weather training in the EU to effectively push the Russians out. You could skirmish with them a little bit, but it wouldn't be an effective response. So he's got 2 months to consolidate if he wants to hold his gains. You look at it that way, you look at the environment and the weather effects. Because I don't think anybody else has been stocking up on their cold weather stuff the last 6 months like he has. Mule showed up. There's Mule. What's up? Mule's stocking to the rafters, right? Yeah, JG, how much of that stuff is real and fake, and how much of it is just old stock footage from who knows what? We've seen it been used even by the mainstream media in the past, like when they had that, it was way back, and it was like a Lebanese city was supposedly rocketed or bombed by Israel, and it was shown to be fake, or was it the other way around? It was an Israeli city that was supposedly rocketed from Lebanon, whatever it was, but it was shown to be fake. It was completely fake pictures, imagery. It's like they had those pictures supposedly out of Syria at one time, made it to the mainstream media, this video, and it was like a night shoot at some range in West Virginia or some Tennessee or something. It was like a night range where everybody was just unloading massive amounts of tracers and stuff. And they were trying to sell that off as actions in Syria. Like, there's so much stuff like that out there that's the mainstream media sucks and can't verify anything because they don't have the experience. And like we said, they totally get caught off guard because they have no ability to think logically. So yeah, all that stuff, imagery and stuff, is hard to figure out what's real and what's staged or propaganda. And the Russians are masters of propaganda. We know how that goes. And we have our own problems with Al Qaeda over here, and you just don't know, even if it's got military people in it, verifiable, how much of it is. It could be training footage for all you know, unless there's real rounds going down and stuff. I mean, is it? What does Ukraine look like? Well, we got an idea of that, but yeah, always hard to verify when you're not on the ground. Oh yeah, it was a Kentucky machine gun shoot, right? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, JJ, just maybe we're better at the propaganda game. Maybe. So yeah, I know everybody's watching. I know everybody's been talking about it, but I just want to throw my 5 cents in there. Um, the control of the NWO is what's at stake. That's kind of my final thought. That's just Putin trying to get his leg in the game of swing his stick of what he's willing to do to be in charge. China's back in that hand, while the EU and the US want to control the New World Order in a different way. But ultimately, in even the smaller picture, Putin's just defending his nation from being aggressed upon by the EU. So, war is never good for anybody, and the outcome is uncertain, as a lot of people have pointed out. And that's the biggest thing: is the uncertain outcomes that are going to happen out of this are going to be some of the big effects that really are unknown and could just the disastrous impacts, I guess you'd say. Somebody else check in. It looks like M Long. What's up, M Long? How you doing? Speaking of Kentucky. But we'll check out here. Oh, Gray Note checked in too. What's up, Gray Note? There was also a nuclear strike target list map shared on Twitter. Little inaccuracies, but it makes you think about if you're worried about nuclear attacks. It was a good little map. I think I'll put it on my community. I'll post it as a picture on the YouTube there if you guys want to comment on it or whatever. But if you're planning for fallout, if you're planning for what's close to you, it gives you a couple of options. It highlights key targets, militarily and stuff, and plus it highlights different types of response: 500 targets versus 2,000. If it was what type of response and what type of attack it was. So it throws that stuff out there. The East Coast is obviously obliterated in some of the larger scale scenarios. Again, I don't think anybody wants to. Again, it goes back to, I think, if Russia and China know they can't occupy the U.S., total nuclear annihilation is not off the table. Maybe that's a way to look at it. I don't think they want to invade at any time. If they can't neutralize us enough with smaller targets, the larger scale response is the option, because they don't plan on occupying or taking anything over until 200 years from now, when everything's done being radioactive or whatever. Then maybe it becomes an option. Maybe they've planned that far ahead. The Chinese do. If the Chinese put it on the table, it's probably something they've thought about. And Bikes and Bullets checks in. What's up? Afternoon. So yeah, lots of stuff to think about. I started thinking about my nuclear fallout capabilities a couple of months ago, I guess. Looking at what was possible and what the options were and what my real exposure was. Traditionally, I've not been too concerned about it unless San Francisco or Sacramento gets hit. But in some ways, it's almost like they would invite the Chinese in. They're not going to they're not going to fight off the Chinese from California. Chinese is practically owns some of these governments out here, you know. So I don't know. Lots to think about. Hopefully everybody's looking out in their area and seeing what's going on around them, because what happens in your local area is most important, right? So good to see you guys. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for all the thumbs up. Tactical Tony dropping the dollar down, dollar down on the bar there. And Bikes is totally entertained. All right. Well, that's the closing note. Be entertained if nothing else, but always prep hard, live free.